Stories of Great Christians. From its radio studios in Chicago, the Moody Bible Institute greets its friends everywhere with Chapter 5 in the transcribed story of Florence Nightingale, The Lady with the Lamb. In 1846, Florence Nightingale wrote in her diary,
I feel as if all my being were gradually drawing together to one point.
That point was her career in nursing. But before she could realize the dream that dominated her for more than 10 years, she had to pass through many trials and disappointments. Not the least of these was the attraction she felt toward a handsome and intelligent suitor, the eminent Richard Monckton Milnes.
Promise me you won't be frightened.
Frightened? Well, why should I be? Aren't we just going to lunch with Professor Buckland?
But haven't you heard? Professor Buckland keeps live animals in his rooms.
Oh, does he really? Well, what fun. What sort of animals? Tigers?
No, not tigers. But I understand that he does have a bear.
Oh. How big is it? You mean it roams around loose?
See there, you are disturbed. No, Flo, it's nothing to be afraid of. It's just a 3-month-old. And since Buckland is a naturalist, I guess he knows how to control it.
Oh, here we are. And I can hardly wait. I want to see this bear. A real live baby bear. And in a house, mind you.
Well, come in. Delighted to see you, Miss Nightingale.
Oh, thank you.
You're the brilliant lass who's had the poetry written about her, I guess.
Oh.
And Milnes, good to see you again.
How do you do,
Go right
Professor?
in and make yourselves at home.
Oh, it's so nice to be here.
Thank
Show
you.
the young lady around, Milnes. You're acquainted.
But I don't see anything of the bear, Richard.
You will soon enough, I guess. Let's sit down for a few minutes, shall we, Florence?
All right.
There's something
Well, good afternoon, Florence.
Good afternoon, Helen. I trust your mother is better.
Oh, much better, thank you.
Shall we sit here? Oh, what a lovely fragrance coming through the window.
Yes, flowers. Fair and beautiful like a lovely lady.
Oh, look, here's Professor Buckland coming to speak to us.
And are you glad?
I am so happy to have you here, Miss Nightingale.
Mr. Milnes tells me that you have a bear. Are we going to have a chance to see it?
Why, certainly, if you'd like.
Oh, I would like to. Where is it?
Look behind you.
Oh,
The French doors are between you. Don't be frightened.
oh, I say. He's an adorable little beastie. May he come in?
If you wish.
My, he doesn't look at all ferocious. He's never bit anyone, has he?
He's threatened to a few times, that's all. Better not get too close. Now,
Oh, dear.
like that. Away, Brownie. Don't get too close to the lady.
Stand still, Florence.
Oh, dear. Now where's he going?
I don't know. Brownie.
He's headed for the table.
What? He's eating the butter.
Brownie, get away from the butter.
Oh, come on. Let's see what he's doing. Yes. Oh, he is eating the butter.
Brownie. Oh, you're so bad. You misbehaved frightfully. And with company here, too. Now you're going to stay on the floor and stop breaking things, or out you go. You understand?
He's talking back.
And be quiet. We'll have no more of that. So, trying to shout me down, are you? I'll call Henry, do you hear? He'll carry you outside. Henry! Henry, come here.
Yes, sir. What is it, sir?
Take this obstreperous little beast out of here.
Yes, sir.
So that day, Richard had no opportunity to speak his mind. The next day, however, at the college gardens.
I've never imagined so much loveliness.
I'm glad you feel rewarded for coming out to see the gardens this morning.
Oh, the weather is perfect for it.
I wanted you to see the famous flowering acacias. And right up here, the roses are blooming.
Oh, how gorgeous. Oh, I like the red ones and... Oh, but I think the white ones are... Yes, the white ones are really the loveliest of all.
White for purity. I'm always comparing you to flowers, Flo. Mostly in my mind, though, because you never let me say the things that I want to say.
Oh, Richard. Oh, look! The butterflies. Oh, what a paradise this must be for a butterfly.
Changing the subject as usual. Really, Flo, there is something I have to talk to you about, seriously.
Now, why do you have to spoil a perfect day by getting solemn and long-faced?
If you call talking seriously spoiling it, I guess we'll just have to spoil it.
Oh, 1,000 pardons, sir. All right. We'll talk seriously if you insist.
Flo, I've been a close friend of your family for years, and you've all been so graciously hospitable. But you must have realized by now that my calls have been principally for the purpose of seeing you.
I guess I have. I mean...
And I can't help thinking that you've been a little more than dutiful in your attentions.
Well, visiting with you doesn't seem like a duty at all, Richard. It's been very enjoyable.
And I've dared to hope that you might consider it not too unpleasant a prospect to spend the rest of your life in my company. There, it's said. And I must have a definite answer, Flo.
But really, Richard,
You do like me, don't you, Florence?
Rather a lot.
Then it shouldn't be too difficult to go just a little farther and say that you love me.
I admire you, Richard. I respect you. And people would say that I'm foolish to hesitate for a minute,
Then
but...
why do you hesitate? I love you, Flo. I've courted you devotedly for a long time, but now I want to put an end to waiting. Can't you give me an answer now?
I'd like to, Richard. I wish I could.
Forgive me, Florence. I see something in your face. Something I'd like to believe is more than respect.
Richard, I can't talk about this any longer right now. I must have time to think. Give me a few days anyway. Then I promise to tell you definitely. I wanted to be alone to think. But as I went by Parthy's room on the way to mine, she called me.
Flo! Oh, I'm so glad you came in. Just made a pot of tea. And if there's anything I dislike, it's taking tea alone.
Oh, your tea is always so good, Parthy.
Drape your skirts over the couch there, and I'll pour you a cup. Piping hot.
Oh, I can taste it already. Oh, you should have been in the college gardens this morning. The acacias were heavenly.
Mr. Milnes was allowed to go along, I dare say, and didn't make the acacias less lovely with the charm of his presence.
You're teasing, aren't you?
And what were you talking about with Mr. Milnes, Flo?
Oh, we were discussing his ideas about a separate reform institution for youngsters who have committed crimes. Richard thinks it's awful the way they send them to prisons with old, hardened offenders.
You've been calling him Richard quite a while now, haven't you?
Well, if he had his way, I'd call him Richard all his life.
You mean... Yes, you must mean that he's asked you to marry him. Oh, I'm so glad, Flo. And you told him you would, of course.
Parthy, you're just as bad as Richard. I dislike being rushed into things.
Well, you can hardly accuse Richard of rushing. Well, he's been courting you for the longest time. And I'm sure he'd have asked you sooner, too, if you'd given him half a chance.
But I wish he'd never asked me.
What? Why, Flo, you're not going to be a silly goose and spoil everything. How did it all come about? Tell me. You were walking in the gardens.
I'm not going to talk about it. I haven't made up my mind quite, but I'm strongly tempted to say no and put an end to this nonsense.
Oh, you can't be so mean.
And I'll thank you not to discuss this with Mamma, Parthy. It's terribly important and something I have to decide for myself. I could be satisfied to spend my life with him if we were both working in some great cause. I could not be satisfied spending a life with him making society and arranging domestic things. Oh, to be chained to a continuation of my present life would be intolerable. I must say no. And when Mamma finds out, I shudder to think of what she'll say.
Come, Flo, put on your bonnet and gloves. We're going out.
Yes, Mamma.
And hurry, please. The Gladstones must be expecting us any minute.
How long are we going to be there?
Must you be thinking of coming back when we haven't even got there?
If it were possible, I'd like to be excused altogether, Mamma.
Oh, now, Flo, well, we've had this argument a dozen times. We'll not discuss it again. Come along quietly like a good girl.
All right, Mamma.
Maybe Richard will come in for tea. Doesn't that make you more eager?
Richard, we call him now.
Well, I think it's only proper now that he's to become a part of the family.
Parthy has been telling tales out of school.
Well, she had to tell me, and why not? I'm so happy for you, Florence. Of course, it is quite proper to let Mr. Milnes wait a few days for his answer. That's very ladylike of him.
But I'm not just being ladylike, Mamma. I'm very seriously thinking of saying no to Richard.
Florence, my dear Florence.
The carriage is at the door, madam.
Thank you, Jennings. I cannot have heard you correctly, Florence.
You heard me all right, Mamma. Let me assist you down the steps.
You must assist me. I feel a bit faint.
Shall we send our regrets to the Gladstones?
No. Climb into the carriage, young lady. Careful with your skirts.
I'm doing fine. Are you going to manage?
Permit me, madam.
Jennings, you've done nobly. Tell the coachman to drive to the Gladstones with as much haste as caution permits.
Certainly, madam.
Now, young lady, you and I are going to have a good talk. Besides all of his other fine qualities, Richard is a past master at entertaining.
That's what I particularly dislike about marrying Richard.
Florence, how can you say that?
Well, this social run gives one nothing on which to feed his mind or soul, Mamma. It's a form of starvation.
Now you're talking as though Mr. Milnes weren't interested in great and important reforms. You know he's been very active.
Only incidentally. Like you're incidentally interested at the poor at Lea Hurst. Like Papa's interested at the school at Welland.
Well, isn't that enough?
No, Mamma, that's not enough. I must be wholly dedicated to the task that I know lies ahead. I believe that God approves of the right kind of marriages.
Yes, and what are the right kind?
Where two people are engaged together in some great enterprise. But I believe God marks out other people for a single life. And, Mamma, I do hate to grieve you, but I believe that I am one of the latter.
And so we conclude Chapter 5 in the transcribed story of Florence Nightingale, The Lady with the Lamp. This is another in the series of Stories of Great Christians, which come to you from the radio studios of the Moody Bible Institute in Chicago.